Welcome to section 3, Service Worker. So in this section, I'm going to take a look at Promise and Fetch API first because they are super critical when it comes to work with Service Worker. They are basically a new feature in JavaScript, which we call it ECMAScript 2015 or ES6. Then after that, we are ready to talk about what is a Service Worker and how it works and the different events in a Service Worker. A lifecycle in a Service Worker and a scope is super important to understand. Then we are going to take a look at them. Then after that, we are jumping to our code editor and try to write some codes and register and activate our Service Worker and listen to different events. We are going to also debug our Service Worker in Chrome DevTools. If you remember, we missed install app banner prompt in the previous section because we didn't have a registered Service Worker. So in this section, we are going to register a Service Worker, and then we are going to see how this install app banner will appear and how we can control over that. Also, we are going to run our emulator and test and debug our application. And then after that, we implement everything in our final project to have a good understanding of what we learned. Promises are very important when it comes to work with Service Worker. So in this video, I'm going to talk about, first of all, callback, and then how we can replace callback with promises. So let's jump into the code. Let's see what is the problem and how we can solve it and what are these promises. So I will just create one folder here. I'll call it promise for your reference later if you want to download it and use it. So let's create one normal JavaScript function. I just say I will create one file for you. So let's say async and let's say mock. What we want to do is we want to just create one simple function, which is an add function, and then with set timeout, we will mock our, asynchronous way behavior in our function, and we'll then return the result when we are add number 1 to our number here after 1 second. So if I just right now call this function and pass number 1, we'll just open my console, go to promise folder, and then I say node. Since we already installed node, I can say sync mock.js, and then you see that we get immediately undefined because we don't have access to this here. To solve this issue, what we can do is we can just define a callback to our function. Let's just create another file. I say callback. What we can do here, instead of just return something, I can just define a callback function. For instance, let me just copy and paste what we've done here to this new file. So here, instead of this add, which we are console log, the result of this add when we are calling that, we can say simply passing another argument, which is a function, and it gets an argument, and then we can pass this result here. So let's see how we can change this. What we have to do is I will just another argument here, and I say callback, and simply I will change return to callback and pass this result to callback. Right now I run my JavaScript file. So let's see here, callback. Oh yeah, we have to console log here our function. All right, I'll just write it for you here, async behavior. So let's here, I'll just rename it to callback and run. You see that after 1 second we see number 2, which is expected. The problem here, if we want to call this number and we want to be relay on the result, we have to have something similar to this, which means let's say I want to add 5 times here, and then I have to just wait for this and then call again this function. And then after 5 times, we will have something like this. Let's run and see what's... I can just comment this out. Then after 5 seconds, you see that it takes like 5 seconds, and after 5 or 6 seconds, we'll see like this is the result. And this is what we call it callback. And it gets worse when we have error handling. So let's just comment this out, and let's just change our function which we defined here with some kind of error logic. I will just add one error logic here. Then yeah, here I'll say that if number is more than 10, then we can say, okay, your number cannot be more than 10, for instance. And our callback will get 2 arguments at the moment. The first argument will be error, which we are passing here because we have kind of error here, and then we return. We don't let the function execute more. And then here we will pass our result as a second argument. So if I just want to like change what we have done here to see what happened, we'll just like, let's change here. I'll pass 2 arguments to the function. The first one is error and the second one is result. And basically here, when there is an error, we will just return and then check if there is an error in console log. If not, then we'll just see the result. So let's change our callback hell with kind of error handling. So here, if I just want to add this logic, error handling, it'll be like these huge and long list of functions, and then we call it like callback hell. So this is callback hell with error handling, and it's so hard to, debug and understand what's going on here. At the moment, there is no error because I said in the logic number 10, then we'll see 6. And if I just change this to 4 here, for instance, then after 4 seconds, I'll see an error, and this is an error. Yes. So to solve this, promises are around, and we can just take a look at that, and we are going to change this function add with promises. Let's see. I'll just create one file here. I'll call it promise.js. We just copy and paste what we have here with error. Yeah, we're going to change this callback to a promise. What we can do is there is a constructor named promise in a global object, so which we can easily call this constructor, and it gets a function which that function actually has 2 arguments. The first one is resolve and the second one is reject. So just want to copy paste whatever we have here, and instead of having callback, if there is any error, I will just say reject, and I can just easily and safely remove return, because reject will not let this function continue working and execute. And here, instead of having 2 arguments, I will just remove this, and I will resolve this result. Just like this. So the moment my function just turned to a promise. So if I want to access to this, what I have to do is, after calling the function with number 1, I can just say dot, then we'll actually listen to the resolve result. So, and it accept 1 argument, which is a function, and that function will have 1 argument, which is our result here. So, and if there is any error, Let's see the result here. I'll just say node promise. Then we have 2, which is expected. And if there is any error here, we can just catch this error with dot catch. Okay. And basically, catch will accept another function which will get one argument, and that argument is error, which is basically this message right now in our function. Let's say if it's more than 0, I will just say node promise, and you'll see that we got this, basically the error message in reject. So what if we want to chain and we want to have something like the similar, callback hill? So that's easy. Let's comment this out. What we can do is we can chain the .then method. So something like this. And that means I can call my function, then I can just easily pass my function, which is basically add 1 to the result. And again, I can do this like 5 times, whatever times I want. And then in the last .then, I will just pass a function and listen to the result and console log the result. Also, we have a catch error here. The good practice is to add catch at the end of the chain, because if there is any error happen in one of them, then the catch method can console log the error for us at the moment here. So let's see the result. Yes, I will just have to change this to, for instance, 10. And go back to, here. Then run it. Yes, after like 5 or 6 seconds, the result is here. So you see that the promises, when we are working with promises, they are way easier and also way cleaner and way easier to even debug when it comes to debugging. There are 2 more methods in promises that I like to point out. The first one is promise all. I just want to quickly review those. I just want to create one file, promise all.js. We can just define 2 promise function here, and I will just quickly do this. I will just define one variable here, add, and another one minus, which is basically a promise. And that promise will resolve this in 400 milliseconds. And the minus is another promise which will be resolved in 1 second. Let's say we need both result, and then after that we want to do something. So that's very expected when we are going to work with an application. So what we can do is we can say promise.all and then pass an array of, promises. Like the first one is add and the second one is minus. And as soon as all of them are resolved, we can just simply say .then, and that .then will have one function which is accept an argument, and this is our result. And basically this result is the result of these 2 promises. Let's see. So I says node promises dash all, and see after we can see the result is add value and minus value is basically is this result and this result. And you see that I just added a console log here to show you we won't see any result unless all of these promises are resolved. So let's run it again. The first one and the second one, and then we will have, this. What if we have some kind of error? I just want to define a method with an error. That's kind of easy, no worries. I just comment this out, define our method. Instead of resolve, I just want to reject something with some errors here. And you see that as soon as we have reject, that's done. So the catch method will fire. So let's see. Done. So add reject. And there is no other things here. So another method here on promises is race, which I want to quickly review that. I say race.js. And the only difference, I will just copy paste everything here. The only difference is here when we say race, promise.raise here. Basically, we just define the same thing. I just copy paste from the file here, everything. And instead of all, we have .raise. And .raise means either of this, when they are going to be resolved, the result will be here. So let's just run this. Save, run. Yes, the minus value. Why the minus value? Because it's going to be resolved in 300 milliseconds, but the first one is going to be resolved in 400. If I just change this to simply 200, then the result is different right now. You see that? It's added value. So this is promises. For more information, you can just simply go to Mozilla MDN website and then go to promises. You can learn more here, see the documentation. Everything is here, so you can just read more for your more information.